Good morning, everyone. We are live on Broncos for Breakfast, but we're going to bring in our Facebook groups as well. We got the Mile High Huddle. We've got the Mile High Huddle podcast, your daily Denver Broncos coverage. And we've got the Mile High Huddle Denver Broncos Superfans group. So we stream to 3 separate Facebook channels. Check one or all of them out if you haven't already. As soon as we get those spinning up and going, we'll get rolling this morning. Good morning, everybody. This is Broncos for Breakfast. I will be your host today, Scott Kennedy. You recognize me. I'm usually here, but I am by myself this morning. Why is that? Because Nick is on his way to Colorado for the Denver Broncos meet and greet that is coming up this weekend for the Packers game with the Denver Broncos and Green Bay Packers. And hopefully tickets are coming down a little bit. That could be one of the benefits of both of the teams having disappointing seasons, is it could be cheaper to get in. But listen, I'm coming out there. I'm flying out Saturday morning. I'll be out there Saturday afternoon, all day on Sunday, and I'm leaving Monday. So I'm looking forward to getting to see a lot of you again and meeting y'all, meeting some of you for the first time. So looking forward to doing that this week. I had a blast last time. The game for me is incidental. I went to the game last year thanks to Dale out in Hawaii. Gave us some spectacular tickets. Loved my time. Took this picture behind me. So that is my picture from when I went to the game. And had a blast, but really I'm going out there because I want to see y'all. I want to see the Mile High Huddle crew. I want to see everybody out there. And that's one of the reasons why we do this live. We do this live every morning is for the interaction with Broncos country. So I want to say hello to some folks while the notifications are making their way out and our audience is coming in. So we'll say there's some hi to folks that have come in nice and early. First off, though, I want to get into some of the things we want to talk about. I didn't really know what to title this episode, so I just called it Rebuilding the Broncos. Building the Broncos will be on tonight. This is Rebuilding the Broncos. Why is that? Because for a year, 18 months, we've talked about that if this thing goes bad in 2023, a lot of the contracts are set up and a lot of the older players, the veteran players are set up that they can readjust contracts, be gone. We've called it the nuke button several times. And you've got a new coach who would then come in and build his own thing. That's Sean Payton, who would be part of a rebuild now. Instead of trying, listen, we'll give this one more shot in 2023, then we're gonna start from scratch and try and build this thing the way I see fit, which is I being Sean Payton in this case. So we're going to talk a lot of that. We're going to talk draft order. We're going to talk potential draft picks. We'll talk some Frank Clark and what that means. We'll hit on some power rankings. Those will go pretty quick. We'll go into some of the biggest weaknesses and some of the young players that we could see play the rest of the season as you start preparing for 2024. 6 games in, Scott, throwing in the towel. Yeah, I am. In fact, at 0-2, I was pretty much ready knowing what the rest of the schedule looked like. You couldn't go 0-2 in those 2 games. I mean, you could. There's weirder things have happened. I know. But let's be somewhat logical here and just follow the trends. If you lose to the Raiders at home, you lose to the Commanders at home to start the season, your schedule was just going to get tougher. You had the Bears, which was a good win, a tough win, but they're sitting there with the tied for the second worst record in football. They're not doing well. And then you got Kansas City, Green Bay, as we'll see about them, but Kansas City back-to-back, and then Buffalo back-to-back. And then Buffalo. So Kansas City, Green Bay, Kansas City, Buffalo. Ouch. So you had to come out fast, or a good team could lose 3 out of 4. A really good team could lose 3 out of 4. And then you're looking at 500. You're like, okay, 500 there. But now you got to win those 4 games to go 500. All right. Well, good luck. So, yeah, I am talking about rebuilding the Broncos, even though it's October. So if you're new, you might not quite get that. That's my explanation. If you are been around here a while, you get it. Bam X has been here a while. He says, good morning, Broncos country. Good morning to you, Bam X. Jeremy Sean comes in, one of our regulars. He was at the meet and greet last year. Hoping to see you again this year, Jeremy. He says, morning, Scott. At this point, they need to lose, draft a top quarterback, cut or trade the high salaries, hire a good defensive coordinator, reset the culture. And thank you for joining me this morning. That is our show for Broncos for Breakfast. Jeremy Sean just summed it up in a tweet-fitting thing. So I will see. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we'll get into all these things because this is it. This is what it's going to take. David comes in. He says, rebuilding, does that mean fire all the coaches and general manager except Sean? Since we were 1-5, everyone is on the chopping block. David, yes. Everyone has a price. I know you say you can't trade Pat Surtain. Yes, you can. If the right price comes in, now it would be awfully expensive. You actually buy contracts in international football. You don't trade players. You can actually swap. You buy contracts out. So let's say instead of baseball is the easiest way to think of this. Instead of sending the Oakland A's, 3 prospects who, when they're actually good major league players, they'll have to sell again. So they're always in a constant state of rebuild. I could send you I'm going to buy that contract out for $100 million. And now you can take the $100 million and maybe go get 5 $20 million players. So in this case, you hear, Kyle, well, Pat Surtain, what do you want for his contract? Well, $200 million. That's ridiculous. He's not worth that. Well, he's not for sale. So if you want him, you're going to have to come overspend. So in this case, if you want Pat Surtain, I'm not even picking up the phone until I hear 2 first-round draft picks, and now you've got my attention. All listening, I'm probably going to say no anyway, but at least I'm on the phone. 2 first-round draft picks, and I'll listen. But yes, everyone is expendable. Everyone has a price. The only one that you would think typically would be put up on the top shelf, on the premium shelf right now is Pat Surtain, really. Dave Glassman says, greetings, fellow fanatics. Good morning, Dave. Hope you're doing well. Kevin Gray says, morning, Scott and Nick. A big Mile High salute to Broncos country. I think we're 2-3 years before we get better. I've been a fan since 68. I've seen this before. I think you're 2-3 years from probably being where you want to be, but frankly, you could be a week away from getting better. I mean, it's pretty bad right now, y'all. You could start improving week to week. Aspects of your team have played better. It just hasn't all come together. So before you're better, I think I know what you mean by that. Before you're, overall, we're looking at playoffs type of stuff. But right now, in the 3rd year I've been covering this team, I'm just looking for the checkmark bounce up. It hasn't done that yet. Where I'm looking at Vic Fangio and what was that team? 5-12, 5-12, 6-11. I don't remember for sure, but it wasn't very good. Last year was a disaster. This year has started off even worse. Man, I'm just looking for the rock bottom where you can start going this back direction. I think someone said 70-20 may have been rock bottom. Maybe. Denver Luke says, good morning, Nick and Scott. Good morning. Like I said, Nick is on his way to Colorado today. He'll be spending some time there, and he will be at the meet and greet. That was one of the reasons we did it later this year in October, because we wanted to make sure we could get as many people there as we could. And this was a week that seemed to work out the best. Pete Loria, he agrees with Jeremy Shawn too. It's hard to argue right now. US Dave says, any thoughts of losing on purpose is despicable. If you say so, Dave. When you start unloading veterans, when you're sellers at the trade deadline, what do you call that? You're not going out there actively trying to lose a game, but you're not setting yourself up in the best position to win. I've got a guy who, he probably could play, but you know what? Marvin Mims has got a tweaked hamstring. No, I'm just saying for an example. He's got a tweaked hamstring. You know what? I'm going to wait another week. We don't have to win today. I've got a disgruntled veteran. See ya. I've got another disgruntled veteran. See ya. I've got players that I could spin off now to help me be better next year. I'm making a trade. Any thoughts of losing on purpose? Call it what you want to, dude. You get rewarded for losing in this league. And it helps you get better in the future when a season is already lost. Y'all, this season is lost. There are no hope for the playoffs. What are you trying to do? Eke out a win here or there? Why? That doesn't make any sense. One, if I can spin off some big contracts and get some salary cap relief for next year, I should. And I get rewarded for losing anyway. So, yeah, they will start forgetting about trying to put this team in the best position to win every single week. Now, does that mean you go out there and you play less hard? Mentally, there's a little bit of that. But no, I've got a job to do. Coaches will still coach to win. Players will still play to win. But the urgency, the impetus, isn't there like it normally is. And the margins are so small that can make a difference. So that's the way I see it. It's called tanking. Whether you agree with that, it's despicable or not, it's the way of the world, man. Kevin Gray, good morning. Scott Albert in here. He's not going to be able to see us this weekend. Sorry, we're going to miss you, Albert. Says, good morning, Scott and MHH fans. Michael Ranquillo coming up some stars. Good to see you as well. Appreciate you being here. Gary Fire says, go Broncos. Yeah, go Broncos. Absolutely. Jay says, Nick isn't here. Y'all trade off. Been that way a little bit lately, hasn't it? He's been gone on Mondays. Yesterday, I was gone yesterday, but hey, at least there's two of us. We can keep a look at things. We can hold you down even when both of us are traveling. I was out of town last Friday through Monday. Let me bring up my other Facebook group here real quick. Apology. And this one actually restarts, so I have to pause it and let it go. I want to make sure I'm not missing any of my Facebook folks coming in here, including Michael and including Claude Riley coming in with some stars too. Appreciate you, Claude. He says, morning, go Broncos. Thank you for the stars, sir. And you came in big last night too. I got to see that happen. So thank you so much. Jay says, good morning. And why isn't he here? Of course. Jay Roper says that Bears-Panthers game will be interesting. Won't it though? Now, the Panthers absolutely have incentives to win. That's what made last year so hard, as your season is spiraling away from you and you can feel it going and you don't even have your first round pick. You're like, man, I'm not even getting the reward for losing, which just makes you even madder at Russell Wilson. It wasn't Russell Wilson's fault. Russell Wilson isn't playing well. If you think he's actively playing poorly, like consciously, I'm upset about something, I'm gonna stink, then you got a problem. But his contract is hurting this team. The trades that were made for him are hurting this team, and that ain't Russell Wilson's fault. That one falls on George Payton and ownership. If you believe that it was George Payton that made those moves, it falls on him. If you believe it was the ownership who pushed for getting that contract extension done and George Payton just did their bidding, it falls on them. Those moves, I put at the feet of, they will fall on George Payton when the axe falls. The free agents this year, I don't put on George Payton. I put those on Sean Payton. One of the concerns I have now, we've got a lot of regulars in here. Y'all know I was a very adamant and a big supporter of hiring Sean Payton. For it, going back to when these guys were going to be available, Sean Payton made the most sense to me. I still think he was the best available coach. I still think he is a very good football coach, but the Sean Payton, the general manager, could tank Sean Payton, the coach. It's just two separate jobs. It's too much for one person. It is separate skill sets, and he's got to bring in someone. And ownership has to work with him to bring in someone that he is comfortable in making these decisions. If he's got final say so, let him come in and rubber stamp stuff. Be part of the process, but he shouldn't be the guy that is making all the decisions. And I believe he made most of the decisions in this last cycle. Nate McMillian comes in. He says, so are we rebuilding or what? Yes. It's starting with Randy Gregory. It's starting with Frank Clark when you're starting to shed players and try and pick up a little bit of money back. The scary thing about Randy Gregory is he wasn't going to play on a $70 million contract. That was nonsense. The minute it was announced, we told you that's nonsense. This is a 2-year, $26 million contract with options. The problem is you went and spent so much money in free agency this last season that you're still 19 in the hole. Now there's contracts you can shed, and we'll go through a bunch of those. We've gone through them before. Randy Gregory's was one of them. But now you've got $9 million of dead cap money sitting in Frank Clark and Randy Gregory next year. Ouch. Yes, ouch. Philip Hogginson coming in says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you. Pete says, good morning, Scott. You are awesome. Well, thank you. You're pretty awesome yourself, man. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see. Chris Jenkins coming here says, morning, Broncos family. Another week of a deplorable loss. They seem to come in different ways too, is the thing. I saw my share of losing growing up. I see it all the time, and you just wondered. I mean, it's a verb down here in Atlanta. How are you going to falcon this thing up? And it usually means you kind of blow it at the end. That was the way they do. So we got to lead. Yeah, they'll falcon it up. Don't worry about it. But it seems like the defense is playing well. I had a dream last night that actually the Broncos had a shutout going into halftime. Let's see how that plays out. That just reminded me. You know how that hits you just right away when you start thinking about it? It was only like 3-0 though. It was a soccer score. So you're like, okay, the offense, if it's not one thing, it's the other. Okay, the offense is playing well. The defense is terrible. The defense is bowing up and getting some turnovers and making plays in the red zone and keeping them out of the end zone. But the offense can't move the ball. Oh, and here comes a special teams play that puts you in bad shape. And that's what happens when your team is bad. It's like, oh, if it's not this, it's this. That's a bad team, y'all. That's a bad team. You're not getting any consistency from any one of your units. That's a bad team. Jason Walton says, good morning, Scott. Anyway, we move on from McGlinchey next season. No. I mean, yeah, anyway, is it possible? Yes. But Mike McGlinchey's contract is really, really team friendly right now. He's got just a $6 million cap hit this year because it jumps to $18 million next year. His base salary this year is only $2.5 million. We talk about all the time. There's ways that you can give a big signing bonus and keep an initial cap hit down because you've got a low base salary. His base salary is only $2.5 million this year. It goes up to 15 next year. His cap hit next season goes from 6 to 18.5. That's a significant jump. That's a 3x cap hit from Mike McGlinchey. His dead cap is still sitting at $29 million. So you've got him this year. You've got him next year. 2025, you could move on. His cap hit goes to 21 and his dead cap goes to 10. That means you get $11 million back towards your salary cap if you were to just flat out cut him. And his base salary is 17. So maybe you could move on from him if it's still this bad. And I'm not saying it's going to be. Again, this is a player who missed all of preseason, missed a significant amount, if not all of training camp. I don't remember right now off the top of my head. But I think he can play better. We've seen him play better than this. But he is a Bronco for 2023 and 2024. Your potential out really would be next year when you'd have to eat some cap to do it. And if you were able to trade him, no one's taking a $17.5 million base salary. So forget that. Maybe you could get $3 million back, and that $10 million dead cap becomes a $7 million dead cap hit in a trade. But in order to move on from him, you are absolutely you're eating some of that dead cap number. I want to say hello to some folks that have come in. We've got lots of super chats coming, so I certainly appreciate that. Elliot D comes in, send a draft pick and Russ to another team. And this is a common stance because contract restructures and trades are so common that people just like, well, just restructure. It doesn't quite work like that. If you were to trade him, Elliot D, I just got done mentioning how you keep that initial salary cap hit down for Mike McGlinchey. You lower his base salary down to 2, and then you give him a big signing bonus and you spread that across 6 years. Okay. So Russ has been doing that. His salary cap hit with the Denver Broncos hasn't actually been that bad. It's been 17 million and it's been 22 million over the last 2 years. His base salary last year with the Denver Broncos was only $2 million. His base salary this year is only $8 million. Next year, his cap hit goes to 35, and in 2025, his cap hit goes to 55. But because of that extension that you extended him through the year 2028, that included $161 million of guaranteed money, his dead cap hit means this is money you owe him, whether he's there or not, is $85 million next year. It's 85. Now, if you're able to trade him for someone to pick up $10 million of his salary, it drops to 75. I could split that across 2 seasons, and it's a $35 million dead cap hit across 2 seasons. You're better off with his cap hit in 2024 of just, I say, $35 million. you're better off putting him on the shelf and making a move for a quarterback and having him just be there as a make weight for $35 million, even if you have to eat his 2025 $35 million guarantee. Basically, there's a ton of money that is guaranteed to Russell Wilson that you're on the hook for, whether he's there or not. So if you're not getting anything out of him and you try and move him, you're still paying him. You still have to pay him. The Chicago Bears last year ate a ton of dead cap money. The Atlanta Falcons ate a ton of dead cap money. They just ripped the Band-Aid off and said, screw it. We're not going to be any good. We got to make this move and put $100 million on the field and pay Julio Jones, Deion Jones, and Matt Ryan. We got to pay them $80 million to go play somewhere else, which is what they did. They were able to trade Matt Ryan and Julio Jones before that. Maybe you can get something, but you're not getting any of that money back. It would actually cost you more next year. And the following year, if you were to trade Russell Wilson this offseason, it would cost you more. That's the scary part. And I appreciate you being here, Elliot. It means a lot to us. Gary Palmer, he's coming in. He says, good morning, Scott and Broncos country. That's all y'all. So I'll be sad to miss some players, but I don't see any other way. Go Broncos. And that's what I mean. You know, who are you emotionally tied to with this team, Broncos country? I mean, there's guys out there. It's like, no matter how the team goes, for me, this guy's untouchable. I don't care. If they lose this guy, I'm going to be so pissed. I don't care what the team's doing. This guy epitomizes everything I want to be about the Denver Broncos. Pat Surtain's really good, but man, he's super quiet. You know, he's not a voice of this team. If anybody would be like that, for me, it would be Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons is a voice of the team. He's been around a long time. He's someone that you've grown emotionally attached to. But after a while, you also say, but I'd like to see him play somewhere else. You know, for his own sake, he can help the team by moving on. And he's paid his dues. He's given everything to this team. They're not winning. Dude, go get a championship. I'm going to root for you. We felt like that about Vaughn. That was the guy. You were sad to see him go, but were you happy to go see him? Were you happy to see him win a Super Bowl with the Rams? I was. I've been a Von Miller fan for a long time. I mean, who wouldn't be, let alone if he was on your own team? So I was happy to see Von Miller go. Are there any players like that still left with this team for y'all where you really have that emotional attachment? It's been so bad the last 3 years. I think that for pretty much any of them, that emotional attachment, not the rational adjustment, like, okay, you don't trade a cornerback like Pat Surtain. That's insane. Okay, I get that. I'll have that argument. I'll have that discussion with you. But the emotional attachment, we're like, man, it would break my heart to see this guy playing for somebody else. Are there even any guys like that left? And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the comments because I'd really be interested. Otherwise, and it's not going to matter at the end of the day. Everybody's got a price. But that's my feeling on this is, you know, oh, they're going to be, we talked about that during the coaching search. Well, so-and-so is not going to like that. Who cares? This team hasn't earned the right to dictate who comes in and does what for coaching. Oh, that's going to make the players mad. These players have stunk. They haven't won in years. Bye. You know, Randy Gregory, you don't like it? Okay, bye. I think Justin Simmons could play for anybody. You know, Jerry Jeudy, you're unhappy? Sayonara. You know, who's out there that you really feel that way? And I'm interested. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to hit to see what several of you have to say on this, to see if anybody came in here. Wicked comes in. He says, you have a great point. I guess Von Miller was the last player we were attached to. And Chris Jenkins says K-Jack because he plays with heart and they need that in the locker room. And for me, last year was a reason for 2022. I was like, okay, I like having Kareem Jackson with this team because I could see this team quit on Vic Fangio, and Kareem Jackson didn't quit. He played He played all out every single snap. 2023, I'm like, but now his time's done. It's too late. And bringing him back was, for me, it's a lesser version of bringing back Vance Joseph. It's like, listen, y'all need change. Y'all don't need same here, let alone old same. You know, I was getting frustrated last night because everybody's like, "Oh, bring back Wade Phillips, bring back Rex Ryan, bring back Jerry Rossberg." These guys are fossils. That's not logical. I'm my heartstrings. I'm remembering how hot my ex-girlfriend was in high school. Yeah, she made me miserable. Um, that's what's the word for it when you look back at something fondly, but doesn't make it nostalgic. It's nostalgic. It's not rational. Bringing back Vance Joseph and Kareem Jackson, it's too soon to be nostalgic, but it wasn't rational. That didn't make sense to me. Albert Knopper says Garrett Bowles is one of those. He always used to play with heart and to the best of his abilities. But Albert, if you said, you know, the Denver Broncos are making a trade and they're getting a third round pick for Garrett Bowles, you know, how would you feel about that? Just about Garrett Bowles, not the team. The idea that some of those guys are leaving just signals, okay, here we go again. You know, we're sellers again. And I know how that makes our friends like Lawrence feel, who's talked about that. Pete says, Quinn Miners, I really like. Nick Kendall's here. He says, if they move on from Josie Jewell, I will cry on air. Go Hawks. Good to see you, Nick. Nick says a 5th round pick for Josie Jewell. And I think he's already dipping into the Colorado Kush or something. 5th round pick. No, I'm just kidding on that, Nick. Maybe, you know, we disagree on the value. Basically, whatever y'all think you're getting for a player, I knock it down at least 2 rounds, realistically. Josie Jewell is at Nick's not saying you get a 5th round, just make it easier. Josie Jewell is at a non-premium position who's been battling injuries, who has 6 months left on his contract. That's not good sales points on those. Joey says, but no, there isn't really anybody that's charismatic on this team. And David says Justin Simmons. He's probably the only one. He goes, but I agree. I'd be happy to see him go to a winner. And David, that's how you start to feel eventually is, you know, Justin Simmons isn't going to be playing on this contract next year with the Denver Broncos. Would he be willing to take a pay cut? Because he's going to have to, because he's got like an $18 million. What's his number next year? I got Russell Wilson's contract up. Justin Simmons next year, his number goes to an $18 million cap hit this year, actually. Next year, it's still 18 with a dead cap of 3.7. And then he goes into a free agent year at 31. So $15 million of savings for is he an $18 million guy? That's a difference maker. Is he really a difference maker for you now, or is he just a good player? You know the answer to that. I don't have to. I don't have to say that one. Thanks, Gary. Talking about missing some players. Mark Schrader coming in says, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you as well, Mark. Good to see you. Hope you were doing well. And Troy comes in. He says, hey, Scott, love listening to you when I can. I hope Browning and Dulcich play well the rest of the way to have a few more young pieces in place. Man, it would just be good to see them on the freaking field. Good Lord. Oh, Dulcich is back. Oh, Dulcich is gone. Browning is back. Well, no, he's not. He's still not back. And that was the activating for off of the pup or opening up the window. There was so much confusion with that where, oh, well, they're back. No, they're not. Brown Browning's not back when he was opened up his 21-day window. You have after your allotted time of starting the season on pup, you've got a 20 after that, anytime after that allotted time, what was it, 4 weeks? You could let them practice. I could say, okay, they're still on pup. It's week 5, still on pup, week 6. Okay, now they look like they're starting to get healthy. I have a 21-day evaluation period that I can use where they don't count on the active roster. They're just practicing because they hadn't been allowed to practice with the team. And I can make an evaluation and decide, yes, I want them back on the 53. Now I have to cut somebody else. Or no, they're not going to make it back, and I have to put them on pup for the rest of the season. He's in that 21-day window still, but the clock is ticking. Unless I missed a roster move, I don't remember seeing that Baron Browning had been signed to the active roster. But even if he does, there's still a ramp up period. You might get 10 snaps in 1 week, 20 the next. But the soonest you're thinking of getting a full speed Baron Browning back right now in week 7, it's like week 9 or 10. But yes, Troy, I agree with you. When we start talking about rebuilding the Broncos, I got to see these guys play healthy 7, 8 games in a row so I can make a decision on, are they going to be part of my future or not? Because right now, the answer is not, because I cannot count on them to be on the field. The answer right now is no. Unfortunately, they're still cheap enough. They're still cheap enough that you're not willing to make any drastic decisions out there for sure. But in my head, I'm thinking I need edge, I need pass catchers, I need all those things anyway. But you see why I'm getting with this. The injury history, unfortunately, the same thing we said about KJ Hamler. I am not counting on KJ Hamler to be part of this team because he has not been part of this team through 3 years. What are we in year 3 of Baron Browning right now? He's shown a flash here or there. We're in year 2 of Greg Dulcich. He hadn't really even gotten on the field this year, and he was late last year. It's unfortunate. It really is. The injuries there. What's fortunate for me though is having a friend and a supporter out there like Michael Ronquillo. Michael Ronquillo just came in with 5,000 stars. That is the biggest number for stars I can remember in several months that wasn't attached to the name Michael Ronquillo. It's a blessing. It's humbling to come on here and talk Broncos football with y'all and have someone like Michael and Troy and all these folks show this type of support. And Gary, Elliot D, Mark Schrader, everybody, Ethan is always here for us in the mornings. So thank you. Thank you so much. Troy comes in again. He says, Rex Ryan can stop the wish wheel. And if anyone starts running again, don't need him for swagger. We have SP, got to get a solid young guy. The recycling of these coaches, it's maddening. It really is. When was the last time Rex Ryan was even in the league? He talks a good game. But I don't see that happening in midseason. That'd be really weird. Sorry, we turned you down, but now we're going to fire the guy we hired over you. That just seems strange to me. It really does. I have a hard time picturing that one. Nick says, I was promised draft talk. Nick, you talked for hours yesterday on draft. I was sitting there with my crappy internet in a hotel room saying, finish it up, dude. I got to go catch a plane. But yeah, we'll hit on some of that stuff and we will have a chance to, again, hit on the things we said in the topic. But again, we do this live because this is your show. I want to answer your questions. But Bama X says, why do we keep assuming that players don't want to be here? Unless a player comes out and say that they don't want to be here, why are those narratives spread? Chubbs, Dre, Jones, and now JJ. A lot of it has to do flatly with winning. Just that's all it is, Bama X. I don't think it really has anything to do with the coaches, the Denver Broncos, unless you see something pretty specific, like your head coach publicly putting down a player. The only one I could see was where I could really see this is one, Randy Gregory's not really going to be happy anywhere. If things are going bad, he wasn't happy in Dallas, wasn't happy in Denver. He might be happy for a little while in San Francisco. He needed to go to a team that didn't need him, where he had to be on his best. It's kind of like marrying over your head. I married someone way over my head because it makes me be a better man to make sure that she realizes she never realizes she could do better than me. I don't want her booting me out of the house. I got to be on my best behavior. I said Philadelphia Eagles was turning into that team. I forgot about the 49ers. That's where he needs to go. Frankly, that's kind of where Jerry Jeudy needs to go, Bama X. We were talking about this, and I heard Zach say last night, and Zach, if you're listening, it's a good point. I just had a different one. He was talking about how he was a big fish in a little pond in Alabama, and being in the South and hearing Alabama called Little Pond is boom. They're a national phenomenon. They're huge. But I didn't think he was really the big fish. That was kind of the thing for me. I think he didn't have to be the guy. He didn't come in with that first round draft status, the highest draft status of any of the receivers on the team. I think he's wilted a little bit under the spotlight. Honestly, the pressure, what do you say? Pressure shows cracks or whatever it is, or it makes diamonds. I think he would be better off on a team where he could be the number 2, the number 3, and sneak in. And that's where the loss of Tim Patrick, the decline of Courtland Sutton compared to where we thought he could be pre-injury a few years ago has hurt him. You want him to be one of the boys, not necessarily had the spotlight on him. But Bama X, as far as not wanting to be here, that goes with the losing, man. And again, I don't think that has anything to do with the Denver Broncos per se, the franchise. It just has to go where the franchise has been. I think it's a great point, though. Nick Kendell, travel safe, man. He's off to Colorado. First stop, Estes Park. See y'all at the meet and greet on Sunday. So that means I will be back here on Thursday. Nick will be gone. I think he'd tried to think about trying to do it, but it'll probably just be me. See what kind of news we have on Thursday, and it'll probably just be me back again with y'all, which I'm looking forward to. Let me see here. I had another set of stars come in. Let me see if I can find Mandy. Mandy Mandy Blythe Buchanan came in with some stars and support for the show, so certainly appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I missed one earlier. I'm gonna read these because they get kind of hard to scroll up and find again. I missed two actually on Facebook. From Miguel, he says, "Good morning, Scott and Broncos country. Is this the week the Broncos put a complete game together on all three phases? Maybe. Home game, that should help. A team that is susceptible to being beaten multiple ways, like the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love got off to a hot start and then has cooled off mightily. They're certainly a beatable team, but as I said before, when you keep finding ways to lose from different phases, it usually means you're a bad team. The Broncos are a bad team right now. So can they get better? Yes. Believe it when I see it. Let me see you guys stop finding ways to lose out there. Okay, the defense has shown up. Great. Damari Mathis is playing well. Yeah, but all of a sudden you're gashing us up the middle. It's just, if it's not one thing, it's the other, and that's the sign of a bad team at this level. And also, let me see here. Poe Castillo had a good question. He says, Scott, if you're Payton, do you try to stay competitive and try and win the winnable games like Green Bay, New England, or tuck tail and make a run for Williams? You're trying to win every game you go out there. That's in your nature. And that's where I will agree with US Dave. The players are playing for professional pride. They're playing for jobs. If not with this team, with the next, that you're trying to win. But does that mean your team has been put in the best situation to win? I might take a little bit longer with an injury. I might ship off a couple of my veterans. I might be in sales mode. We've got 2 weeks to the day, actually, before the trade deadline. We'll know a lot about whether these Broncos really want to win every game. I feel like I've already seen it to a certain extent. We talk about addition by subtraction, but, Randy Gregory could help you. A healthy Frank Clark could help you. Do you try and get those guys on board, or you just say, screw it and ship them out of here? I think that's your answer already, all honestly. Andrew Lampy, let me see if I can find his comment on here real quick. That way I can show it and read it. Shouldn't take me long. If it takes me longer than the time to finish the sentence, I will just read it. Okay, I'm just going to read it. Here it is. He says, I doubt Wilson wants to ride the bench. My guess is he would restructure to avoid that. Gives Denver a little power. And he would have to give money back, Andrew. That's the thing. He's gotten paid a big signing bonus. Says he would actually have to write a check to the Denver Broncos to do that. Is he willing to do it? Just like in retirement, you actually, I think the Detroit Lions tried to get the signing bonus money back out of Barry Sanders and made him give money back, but the Indianapolis Colts did not when Andrew Luck went into retirement. I might be wrong on that, but that's how I remember it. You could restructure, but typically, no, he's not going to want to ride on the bench, but he got a $250 million contract that is horribly against this team, and you're not performing. What am I supposed to do with you? Cripple this team more by releasing you or trading you somewhere else? That actually hurts my team even more, Russ. But would he say, listen, I'm worth $500 million already, maybe more as my family's net worth is. I'd be willing to eat $20 million to go play somewhere else. And if so, who would that be? Who's willing to take a chance to bring him in as a guaranteed starter now anyway? So those are all the things you have to worry about, Andrew, is there someone else out there that thinks, Russell Wilson's the key for us? Indianapolis Colts did think that when they sent a 3rd-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons for Matt Ryan. They think, okay, we got a roster. We're one shot here. The Broncos gave up a lot more because they thought Russ could be the guy for 5 or 6 years, and they paid him that way. And that said, the Colts still ate about $20 million in dead cap when they restructured Matt Ryan. So again, you don't get out of this money unless someone's willing to give the money back. Is Russ willing? It's not just about restructuring. It's about refunding. How many players do that, man? Oh, Aaron Rodgers, he redid his deal to give them a whole bunch of money. He just kicked it down the road, man. He's still going to get his money. He's going to get more money. Usually when you restructure a guy who has a ton of guaranteed money, he gets more money. When you restructure a guy like Garrett Bowles, like Justin Simmons, who are being overpaid, Graham Glasgow was a perfect example 2 years ago. He had a $15 non-guaranteed contract. Oh, we'll bring you back for $3. And that's about what he came back for. That's a restructure. You have to have either the threat of I can cut you or the willingness to extend years of the deal and basically pay an interest payment. Broncos aren't in that situation right now, man. That's the problem. He's not playing well. He's old and he's got a ton of guaranteed money. That's bad news. It's bad news for your salary cap. Okay, going back to what Nick said. Draft order, y'all have seen that. Nick went through it again, so I won't go through a ton of it right now. But the draft order right now is 1, 2, 3, Chicago, Denver. If we're to end like that, if Denver ends up in the 3 spot, you are really, really going to want the Bears to be sitting at at 1 and 2, because there's a chance that they could go quarterback, wide receiver, and then you could go quarterback in the 3 spot. Most every other scenario, Caleb Williams and Drake May are going to sit there and go 1 and 2. You need that quarterback. Would you like to have Marvin Harrison? Yes. But again, you're getting back to me of the Falcons drafting Kyle Pitts when their quarterback position was in such flux, which is where they are now 3 years later. They still don't know what they're going to do about the quarterback because they had an aging, declining quarterback in 2021 when they made that deal. You want a quarterback on this one. So the Broncos are certainly in contention for the number 1 and number 2 overall pick as far as I'm concerned. There's not a ton of winnable games left on this schedule. In fact, I think if you look at ESPN's game tracker, the only one where you are favored to win by percentages is New England Patriots at home. When I went and looked through them, let me look again real quick for this year. What's this week? Because Green Bay is not all that great. Green Bay and Broncos. Green Bay is a 1-point favorite, and GameCast says the Packers 57% on a 2 and 3 Packers playing on the road, and they're a 57% favorite. The number 1 and number 2 overall picks are not out of the question, y'all. And I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't already know here. Let me see here. One of the things I want to talk about was Frank Clark. We hit on that a little bit. Power rankings, wanted to hit on that. Getting back into the schedule. All of them are going to be the ESPN one. Latest one was 31, with 32 being the Carolina Panthers. And let's see, the biggest weaknesses and draft help, et cetera. Bleacher Report actually did this, and I thought they did a pretty good job with it. They ordered the biggest weaknesses right now is 1 edge, 2 cornerback, 3 linebacker, 4 interior defensive linemen, and 5 quarterbacks. So basically, your entire defense except safety and quarterback. And what's a little bit ironic about that is we highlighted safety as one of the weaker positions to start the season. Justin Simmons isn't fantastic anymore. He's good, but your other safety position was a big question mark going in. You had a coming off an injury, Caden Stearns, and you've got an old Kareem Jackson. And it's just, I think safety is a problem too, as far as where you're looking in that. Albert Knopper's asked, do the Panthers not have a first-round pick? No, they've sent it to the Bears to move up and take Bryce Young. So that could end up being a really expensive pick. The first-round pick that they gave up this past draft turned out to be Jalen Carter. And then their next pick could end up be Caleb Williams. So they could end up trailing Caleb Williams or Drake May and Jalen Carter to get Bryce Young. So Bryce Young better end up being pretty good. You're okay missing on those guys. You're not happy with it if you get your quarterback. If your guy is good, okay, so be it. We gave up a lot, but we got a lot. But my God, you better not miss on those when you make a deal like that. Jeremy says the Bears might not pick a QB if Fields plays well. Those are big ifs. I just, if they're sitting at 1-2, if they're sitting at 1-2, it means Fields didn't play well enough. If the Bears have their pick in the top 2, Fields is gone. If the Bears end up 10-15 because Fields played better and they have the Panthers number 1 or number 2 pick, then we have a discussion. Then we have a discussion of what they might want to do. But if they're picking 1 and 2, Fields is gone because their season went in the crapper again. They're 2-15 or 3-14 at best, and Fields is gone. That's the way I see that. And Mark Schrader says, I can see the Bears trading number 2 for multiple picks, and then we would still get screwed. And that is a possible. That's why I said the only possibility of you sitting at 3 and getting a quarterback is if the Bears decide that Marvin Harrison Jr. is that guy. They take a quarterback and then they take Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think that would happen. I think quarterbacks are going to go 1 and 2. And Jeremy follows up. He says, "Don't get me wrong, I would pick a QB, but Chicago really likes Fields. He's played better before he got hurt. He did. He played, and if he's done for the season, then maybe. But I just don't see it, man. I really don't. If their own pick is in the top 2 and they're 2-15 or 3-14, I think they're going for a quarterback. I really do. And then they'll try and spin Fields into a number 1 and get something back from him. So we'll see on that. Edge rusher. If we look at these, Bleacher Report did a pretty good article. They said, who could you get now to help? And they said Edge Carlos Dunlap. Just because they need bodies and he is out there, I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know that they're really trying to bring in difference makers. And going back to the discussion we had at the top, US Dave, are you actively adding to this team with veterans trying to win, or are you just trying to survive? Just trying to survive the year. In 2024 free agency, they said quarterback Jalen Johnson, Chicago Bears, as somebody to go up against and go with Patrick Surtain. And then in the draft, they said Drake May, 2024. Now, I feel like to a certain extent, there's some bias going on towards Drake May because that's who you have a better shot at getting. Caleb Williams is pretty much a consensus number 1. Oh, yes, and Drake May is also really good. Either way, I don't really care. If you were to get either one of them, going through the draft history off the top of my head, I go to 4 guys right now that are in this level. Andrew Luck, the next best prospect after Andrew Luck became Trevor Lawrence. The next best prospect in that same group in the timeline is Caleb Williams and Drake May. So for me, you're talking about one of the top 4 draft prospects of the last 12 years. How long has Luck been gone? Forever. I don't remember which draft that was. But it's been a while. And then going back to here, Kyle says, honestly, I want Marvin Harrison. We haven't had a true number 1 since Bebe Thomas. None of our wide receivers are a 1. And that's fine, Kyle. Who's going to get him the ball? And that's my big concern with taking a pass catcher is, for me, build around that first. They're not necessarily a luxury, but if you're moving on from Russell Wilson, are you counting on Jarrett Stidham? Are you bringing in Ryan Tannehill as a bridge quarterback? Kirk Cousins as your bridge guy, and you use your number 1 on Marvin Harrison? Maybe, man. And then you're right back in the problem in his second and third and fourth year contract where you don't know who the hell's getting him the ball. So would you love to have him? Absolutely. Would that be my pick? No. If I'm sitting at 3, I would probably be more interested in Olimu. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name, but Positional, the offensive tackle at Penn State, over Marvin Harrison Jr., or I would be looking to see if I could swap places with somebody at 4 and move down and let them get the guy. And then I could finally get an offensive tackle. Let me see. On some of the things we've talked about, interior defensive lineman, yes, that is a huge need. We've gone through all this ad nauseum. We got a bunch of new folks in here, so if you have any questions, but we've gone about 50 minutes. I hit on a lot of the things I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions specifically, Scott, what do you think about this or this? I'd be happy to keep talking, but I feel like, we've talked about overall, I think the offense is in decent position, except for the quarterback. The offensive line isn't quite as bad as it feels like. You need wide receivers, but that's the big one there. Running backs, okay, that's going to take care of itself. That's not that big a deal. Jaleel McLaughlin's good. Javonte Williams, you got one more year of your contract. You need pass catchers. You need a quarterback. Defense, you need it all. You need everything. You need a cornerback or two. You need a safety or two or three. You need a linebacker or two. You need at least two interior defensive linemen, and you need two edges. You need it all on defense. Looking at the draft board, it doesn't look like that defensive guy is necessarily going to be there. If you've got a Bosa in here or a Myles Garrett, that's your target. I don't see that happening here. Let me see. Chris Jenkins says, read an article about trading Russ for Dak. Would you? The contracts won't line up for that. That's nonsense, Chris. I don't know how else to say that. That would just never happen. The whole idea of swapping, oh yeah, we're going to swap Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. I'm like, have you seen these contracts? Does anybody even know how salary caps work? It's just that's just not going to happen. Mandy says, I'm sick of trading down though. Well, shit, you've been trading up. You've been trading out. That's part of the problem. 3 first-round draft picks. Would it end up being 3? It was 2 first-rounders. And then you gave up a third when you got for Sean Payton when you traded away Bradley Chubb. But then you traded up to get Riley Moss, who hasn't contributed. You traded up to get Marvin Mims, who is being frozen out to a certain extent. Hey, that guy looks really electric. Let's stop giving him the ball. It's a little silly on that. But I'm going to get out of here, y'all. I appreciate you coming in here and supporting the show. Michael Ranquillo closes us out. He says, great show today, Scott on Broncos for Breakfast. And Michael, thank you so much for all the support. Mandy, let's see, we had Andrew come in. I know we had Miguel come in with some stars too. Andrew Lampy, I probably said him at least once with the stars. And then on Facebook, I had Elliot D, Gary Palmer, Mark Schrader, and Troy. Thank you so much. I will be back here on Thursday to talk some football with y'all. We'll start looking forward to next weekend, getting ready for the meet and greet. And then it's just a few days before I'll get to see a lot of y'all in person. And I'm really looking forward to it. Appreciate everybody being here. It means a lot that everybody's here hanging out with me, talking Broncos football in the morning. It really does mean a lot to me. I will be back talking some Falcons football on my channel, youtube.com/Scott Kennedy tomorrow morning. I haven't talked to them after losing to the Commanders. It might be a little ugly. So if you want to have a little schadenfreude, happiness at the misfortune of others, come see us. Come say hello at Falcons. They're a little pissed off around here right now too. And then I'll be back on Thursday, and then we'll be talking NFL on Friday. And Saturday, I'm hopping on a plane and coming to Denver. Looking forward to it. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.